Hello, friends, and welcome to Season 3 of Hops and Hedges, the podcast where we talk about beer, landscaping, and everything in between. I'm your host, Heather Gerard from My Landscape Artist, and I am so glad you're here. Hops and Hedges is proudly sponsored by ext.tech, and you're going to want to stick around until the end of the show for an exclusive discount code to use for their powerful CRM software and mobile app. Now crack open a cold one, and let's dig in. There we are with me today, all the way from Markham, Ontario, the one, the only, Mark Cullen. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thank you, Heather. It's great to be here. And thank you for the invite. I've been looking forward to this since I met you at the Landscape Ontario Congress a number of months ago now.
Man, I am totally overjoyed that you're here. I am just dying to pick your brain. So we've got an hour together and I am just going to jump right into it. So
Okay.
for people tuning in who aren't familiar with who you are, all the work that you've done for our trade, our profession with Landscape Ontario, could you give us a little lowdown as to who you are, what you've been up to, and why you're amazing?
What if I don't actually know the answer to that question? Well, if you asked me to describe myself, amazing would not have entered my head at any time. Somebody else might have used that expression. It reminds me of when I was setting up my Facebook account, which sadly was probably 20 years ago. And they used the moniker Mark Cullen, Canada's gardening guru, and they didn't ask my
Ooh.
permission. They didn't say, well,
Okay.
what do you think? Do you think of
Yeah.
yourself as Canada's gardening guru? Because the answer would have been, oh, I don't, because
Mhm.
there are a lot of people who know a lot more about gardening than I do. I'm just a gardening guy who enjoys talking and communicating and connecting with Canadians. That would have been my answer. But because nobody asked me, they put it on my Facebook account and it's still there. And
Yeah.
I asked to have it removed. And this was after I had gained, a few thousand fans. And the answer was, if you take that down, you're going to lose all the fans that you've earned.
Right.
And I thought, well, it's not worth it. I just leave it. Who cares? It is what it is. And so people, if I'm being introduced, say, at a public event, people will often say, Mark Cullen, Canada's gardening guru, which I still don't like, but I know where they got it from. They've been
Mhm.
on my Facebook account and they see it's right there, right?
Yep.
So I'm not amazing. I am not amazing. I think I'm a very ordinary Canadian, a Canadian who has a passion for a variety of things, but it all comes back to nature, gardening, trees, family. That
Love that.
that's it. I mean, in essence, if you're asking me, well, who is Mark Cullen? That's who he is. He's always had this almost evangelical passion for the message of gardening. And I have to tell you, Heather, I got rather weary of talking about how wide the hole should be and how deep after a few years. And I wrote a few books that were very practical in nature. And I came to the conclusion that what really interested me and got me going and got me up in the morning was not how to garden, but why we garden.
Mm.
And I'm still fascinated by that. Why we garden, why we engage in the public park experience, why being around a tree is almost an existential experience for many of us. It is
Mhm.
certainly is for me, and I'd love to tell you more about that. Those are the topics that really interest me. So it's been a long time since I really wrote a practical column, either newspaper column, newsletter, or podcast where I just simply talked about, well, now is a good time to rake your lawn and put down some grass seed. It's like done.
Yeah, I hear you. Wow. I just it's funny when you talk about this evangelical almost passion about
Mm,
nature and horticulture and trees and plants and family. And I think on your pre-interview questionnaire too, you mentioned how some people, I think you mentioned it was your family who says that sometimes you're too passionate or you're too like you're such a big personality when it comes to this thing. And I really connect with that
mm,
because when you do what you love and you love what you do, it really does become so connected to your identity that how can you turn it off?
right,
If there's something that lights a fire in you, you
right,
don't just, dull the flames so that
right.
it doesn't burn somebody else. It's like, no, we're going to make
Yeah,
this thing burn.
yeah. And
You
and
know?
why? Why would you dull the flame?
Yeah.
I don't understand that.
Nope. I just say, you know what? My flame's big. And if it's too hot for you, just back it up a little. Okay. Just move your chair back, whatever distance is comfortable for you. This
I
fire,
love
she's hot. She's hot. So,
it.
Mark, you have been around for quite a while, like more than a couple of years,
All right. I'll buy
right?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You'd
buy
say it's
that.
accurate, more than 2 years at least. So, how did this whole journey into horticulture start for you? Like, do you remember being little and outside and you're like, I'm going to work in nature when I grow up? Or what was young Mark's big life plan when you were little?
Nobody I don't think anybody has ever asked me that question, and I love that question, Heather, because the answer would surprise just about anyone.
You know.
Uh, and the answer is I wanted to fish. When I
Huh.
was 10 years old, I just wanted to fish. And I subscribed to Field and Stream and Outdoor Canada and every fishing magazine I could get my hands on. And I can remember going into the classified ads in the back of Field and Stream, and you could get free stuff. So many companies. I remember one was called Creek Chub. And if you wrote to Creek Chub, they would send you a free lure. But what they didn't tell you is that they would send you solicitations for the rest of your life that would drive my parents absolutely mad because it was all this mail coming in for me,
Yeah.
trying to get me to buy the next lure, right? And literally, they were luring me into buying lures, and
Love that.
I loved it. I
Hmm.
I, I just wanted to fish. And I imagined myself on a boat, on a lake, fishing.
Yeah.
And I think that that dream was stayed with me until my late teens. And it wasn't until I got seriously involved in the business with my father in my 20s when the passion shifted and I just kind of lost interest in fishing, and that was displaced by a passion to promote gardening. And it was largely because in my heart, I'll be completely honest with you, I'm a salesman and I love sales and I
Yeah.
love marketing. And I was working retail for my father and through my teens. That's how I made my pocket money as a teenager. I did have a paper route, and it was a great way to learn about budgeting and about dollars and cents. And, it takes effort to make money and all that
Hmm.
kind of stuff. But I evolved from the paper route into working for my father. And that experience taught me that there was a tremendous opportunity to sell more plants, to sell more plant. He was in the retail plant selling business. He was a retail gardener. And the name of our company was Wheel and Cullen Nurseries. And some of your listeners slash viewers might even remember it. Which
Probably heard of it. I have a feeling.
well, I think you're a little young. Some
Heard of
sell.
it.
I sold it in 2003 to my nearest competitor, which was Sheridan Nurseries. And so that would take somebody that's been around a little while to remember Wheel and Cullen. But that's where I cut my teeth in the business. And it was in my 20s that I realized that every social event I ever went to, when people learned what I did for a living, you sell plants for a living? I got a question for you. And
Huh.
it was sort of like being a doctor in the room. And you must get
Yeah,
this yourself,
I
right?
do.
Right. So if you are introduced to strangers, you want to start a conversation, you want to be friendly, they want gardening information. And
Huh.
so they might ask, I don't know, anything under the sun. How do I get rid of the raccoons in my garden because they're ripping up my lawn or whatever? And I realized A, the questions are endless. B, just about everybody with a home or access to a little real estate has questions about the garden, about nature. And I thought, there's an opportunity here. And the opportunity still exists. And you're taking advantage of it right now.
Mhm.
And the opportunity is this. People are so hungry for information about how to garden successfully that they'll go out of the way for that information. So I approached a local radio station in 1982, and I remember precisely when it was, who I spoke to. His name was Jim Kidd. He was at radio station CKAY, and we were buying airtime on CKAY for Will and Cullen at the time. And my salesman said, we're actually looking for a gardening expert because we're changing our programming and we're going to move out of music into talk radio. He said, why don't you come and meet Jim? Tell him your thoughts. And I did. And it was one of the strongest sales pitches I've ever made. That and asking my wife to marry me. They are like right up there. I'm not sure
Yeah.
which one was more difficult. I had to ask Mary 3 times before she
Oh,
said yes. So probably that was the harder of the
yeah.
2 pitches.
And I think
Because
you said you're still with your original wife, right?
no, she's
Is
with
what you
me.
said. Oh, she's with you.
Yeah, that's which is the difference is significant because she deserves all the credit, you see, Heather.
Ah,
Uh,
it's
40
easier. It's more of a challenge for her to stay with you.
Why wouldn't I stay with her? Like, that would be a really stupid question, honestly, because she spoiled me for 45 years. Speaking of radio, which is, just like one thing I kind of did. My work in radio evolved away from CKY, which was the number 10 radio station in Toronto, to the number 1 radio station in Toronto. I had an opportunity to get a airtime on CFRB, which is now News Talk 1010. And CFRB was the number 1 radio station in Canada, measured by audience size, right? And there were FM stations creeping up, but this was an AM station that absolutely dominated the airwaves in Toronto at one time. Just before I joined them in 1989, a few years before that, they actually had a 27% market share. Now think about that. If there were 25 radio stations in Toronto at the time, they had a 27% market share. That
Well,
was just anything that they said on CFRB just got quoted everywhere. And there were people coming into our garden centers quoting their gardening expert. And in time, I got that job and it was phenomenal. Now, back to Mary for just a moment. What's that got to do with 45 years of successful marriage? Well, what it's got to do with is we had 4 children. By 1989, we had 2, we had a third on the way, and I left the house every Saturday at 8 o'clock to go down, do a live radio broadcast, and I'd be home by 1. Every Saturday, almost 52 weeks a year, maybe 48. It was hard to take a week off,
yeah.
and you could never take a week off during ratings, and she was always there for me. Like, Mark, she said to me, do what you need to do. And if that's an important part of how you make your living, go do it. And so back to your question about I'm with her, she's with me. No, she's with me. I was always with her. It would be the most ridiculous thought would be go find an alternative.
Right.
To what? Like the most giving person I ever met.
Yeah.
Uh,
I feel you, because I often say that my husband definitely stays with me. Like,
Yeah.
there's no I'm not going anywhere. But it's like, it's crazy to me that I found somebody who could keep up with my crazy. Like,
Aw, isn't that nice?
that's how kind of I feel of it. So he's like the rock, and I'm like the birds and the clouds and the rainstorm and the tornado that comes through, but the rock just stays there, you know? It's like,
You
"Oh,
see,
today it's raining. All right."
it's a wonderful compliment. He's not, and I'm sorry, I don't want to go along with this notion that you're crazy. You use that, but he's not equally crazy. He's the rock. And
Yeah.
so that works, right? That works really well. Good
It's
for you.
funny every time,
Congratulations.
thank you. I definitely feel very blessed to, I never thought I'd find somebody who could keep up, and I did.
We're kindred spirits.
I think so too. Let's do a cheers to our spouses, shall we? I think that's a good, usually I cheers each other, but I think cheers to our spouses. Mark, you have a really awesome mug. Can you just show us and talk to us about the mug that you have today?
Yeah, just a minute.
To Grandpa, and there's 3 hearts on the bottom.
There's 3 hearts in the bottom from so I have 8 grandchildren. One of them is Matilda, and Matilda is
Aw.
now 3 years old, and she was born in London, England. She's a little miracle baby, which is just simply means kind of what it suggests, that it was difficult for my daughter to get pregnant, and when she did, it was a miracle, and we have
Aw.
this lovely Matilda. And
I don't even know them, and I'm so happy for them. As
yeah,
somebody who, personally from a very young age, I knew that I never wanted children. It was just something that I knew. Like, I played
mm,
house with my brothers, and I went to work, and they stayed home with the babies, right? Like, when I'm 5 or 6, like,
well,
I never had that mother thing. I'm more crazy aunt material,
right.
right? But I see so many people who really have this deep desire to be a parent, and then they struggle to be a parent.
Yeah.
And my heart aches for them
Yeah.
because I know how much I don't want to be a parent, and I can't imagine the people who do. Those are the
Mm,
people who should be parents, and it's not always easy for them, right?
yeah.
And it
It's
breaks my
true.
heart.
Yeah.
So, a little bit kind of similar to parenting. I love on this show having an opportunity to talk about the mentors in our lives that have
Mm.
shaped the people who we are and who have inspired us. And I love that on your pre-interview questionnaire, you'd like to give a shout out to the one and the only Tony DiGiovanni. Do you want to talk about Tony here for a second and how
Oh,
has he impacted you?
yeah, well, he's impacted me in ways I can't even measure. And I mean that quite sincerely. I always admired Tony from afar because he was the executive director of Landscape Ontario for over 30 years. And I remember when he first took the job on, they had a handful of employees, 2 or 3 or 4, and the membership was not huge. It was hundreds of members. And when he retired, I'm going to say 4 years ago, I think they were employing over 40 full-time permanent people through in a variety of programs.
Hmm.
And the membership was over 2,500. And it was and it is still, with credit to Joe Salemi, the current executive director, it was and it is still the largest horticultural trades association in the world. And not all the credit would go to Tony, and he's the most
Right.
modest person I've ever met.
He's
But
so humble. He
he is
really is.
so humble. He is a wonderful role model, and I've learned so much from him. That doesn't mean that I'm as humble as he is, because I'm not. But I have learned that there are benefits to being humble. And one of them is everybody loves the guy. Everybody loves Tony. And if I may, in answer to your question, Heather, about my relationship with Tony, I had a dream in 2013 that it would be useful to bring all of the not-for-profit tree planting organizations from around the country together in one room. And obviously not the whole organization, but the CEO or the chair of Forest Ontario, Tree Canada, Posting Council of Canada,
Yeah.
Landscape Ontario. And I invited them all to a meeting at the Toronto Botanical Gardens, send one representative, and here's what we're going to talk about. Each one of you is doing amazing work in the genre of tree planting for not-for-profits across the country, and mostly in Ontario, let's be frank. And I want to bring you together to answer one question. All of you are working individually and doing great work, but what if we worked together? What if we collaborated? What if we shared notes? What if, right? And I mean, to me, honestly, Heather, I think this is kind of wired into my DNA. It just makes sense to work together. And the concept of Landscape Ontario has always made sense to me. So having Tony in the room was really helpful because it's not a world I was especially familiar with. I came from the world of retail gardening and communications. He's this guy that has done amazing things.
Hmm.
So about a year went by, and we were meeting sporadically, having this carrying on this conversation about what we could do by working together. And he put up his hand and he said, "At Landscape Ontario, we recently reforested the the Veterans Memorial Parkway in London, Ontario."
It's my
You would know
city.
it.
I drive it every day.
Do you?
I do.
Have you noticed there are trees on it?
There's a couple.
I hope there's more than a couple, but
There's a
uh,
couple, like 100, if not a couple
okay,
thousand at
okay.
no, there are tons and tons of trees lining Veterans Memorial
Well,
Parkway.
that's
That
credit to Landscape Ontario members, and the story goes back about 15 years.
it's a
Well,
project.
12, 14, 15 years. And
Yeah.
so Tony said, we just reforested the Veterans Memorial Parkway in London.
Yeah.
It's 10 kilometers. If we can do that, why don't the people in this room commit themselves to reforesting the Highway of Heroes in Ontario? Which
Mhm.
isn't 10 kilometers, it's 170 kilometers. And as you probably know, and many of your listeners will know, the Highway of Heroes is so named because it's the only highway where Canadians who were lost in the Afghan conflict, their bodies were flown to CFB Trenton, repatriated on Canadian soil, and then driven down the 401 to the coroner's office, 170 kilometers. And then as time passed, and there were hundreds of thousands of Canadians that gathered on the highway merely to pay quiet respect to the 158 service people, men and women, who were driven down that highway to the coroner's office. It was an act of provincial parliament that deemed it the highway of heroes in Ontario. And I have to tell you, there's a highway of heroes in every province, but there's only one in the country where Canadians were repatriated and driven down to the coroner's office. So the question Tony was asking was, why don't we reforest the highway of heroes? And what we ended up doing was we decided, okay, how many Canadians were lost at war since the War of 1812? Do you know the number?
I don't.
Well, it's an important number for Canadians, although nobody knows it. The number is 117,000. It's a round number, right? Because it includes the 158 lost in Afghanistan. But yeah.
Sorry, Mark. I probably should have mentioned before. I just get maybe a little triggered about the war stuff, you know?
Well,
Okay. I'm just having a little moment, but that's a lot.
God bless you,
17,000 people.
because since we started the campaign, I've had a lot of moments. I've met a lot of Silver Cross mothers. These are Canadian women who have lost either a son or a daughter in the conflict. And I have learned so much about the true sacrifice that Canadians have made during times of war, and not even during times of war, during times of
Right?
peace. So we decided we would plant 117,000 trees on the Highway of Heroes to honor them. And we realized 117,000 trees wasn't enough.
Yeah.
So there's another number, and the number represents the number of Canadians who volunteered for military service during times of war. And the number is 2.1 million.
Oh my gosh. I knew it was over 2 million. I did
Yeah,
know.
Joe, good for
I did know
you.
that.
Good for you.
And then, so how many trees are we at? Because this is
So
an ongoing initiative, right?
we promised to our donors and our supporters to plant 2.2 million, and we planted 2.5 million. And we planted the last tree 4 years ago, last November. David Johnston, who was then the Governor General of Canada and an honorary patron of the Highway of Heroes tree campaign, came to historic Fort York and planted the last tree for us. We raised $10 million, half of it from private Canadian citizens like you and me, who dipped into their pocket and said, this is important. I want to be a part of it. Half of it came from federal and provincial funds, and we had over 4,500 volunteers planting trees. We had over 4,200 Canadian donors, again, like you and me, just Canadians who just said, I want to support this. It was a fabulous experience. And what I want to say about Tony is this: none of this would have happened without him. First of all, not because it was his idea. Could have been anybody's idea, and then put it on the table and walked away. That's not Tony.
Right.
What Tony did was he said, let's use the Ontario Horticultural Trades Foundation to flow the donations through. We can produce receipts. Let's use the office space. And then we came up with this idea that the umbrella organization should be called Trees for Life. And the idea came, once again, from Landscape Ontario, because they had a campaign called Green for Life,
Yeah.
right? Green for Life. So I called Tony and I said, we really like the idea of Trees for Life, but I don't want to borrow the idea from LO without permission. And he said, you've got it.
Yeah.
Do it. We love it. He said, it's our mandate. We want to plant trees.
Yeah.
That's what Landscape Ontario does. And so it was occasion after occasion after occasion where he just simply came to the table and he smoothed the way, and he made the idea and the dream of the Highway of Heroes Street campaign real. I can remember one day, and I probably shouldn't say this publicly, but I was really quite annoyed with the people at the Ministry of Transportation because we were not getting the cooperation we needed to get permits to go on the highway and plant the trees. We had followed all the protocols. We'd followed all the rules, and we were not getting these permits. And so I went to a meeting and I told a whole bunch of them that were in the meeting to fuck off.
Attaboy.
I mean, I was so fed up. I
Yeah.
was so fed up. And Tony fixed that. I made a problem. He fixed it. And this is Tony. Tony is a fixer.
I have to hold on. I would say you pointed out the problem. You brought the problem to light. I don't see you telling somebody to fuck off is the problem. The problem is, you guys had an important job to do. You had crossed all your, it's so funny. Me and my friend, we say we cross our I's and dot our T's. So that's what I was going to say. You've crossed all your I's and you've dotted all your T's, right? You've followed everything to the letter and you are doing something that is bigger. It is so much bigger than any single person. And then you have certain bodies, political, governmental, bureaucratic, BS, whoever, I don't care who they are, and they put up these roadblocks and this red tape. And it's so disheartening, and I come from a passionate place because I've been in a situation, not with Trees for Life, but fighting ministries to try and do something wholesome. And it's red tape after red tape after red tape when we're going to cover all the costs. We're not even asking the ministry to pay for anything. We want to do something for the community. We want to do something and bring people together. We want to leave a legacy and we want to contribute to our future. And they're like, well, no, because there's this law, there's this bylaw, or this or that, and it just makes me so mad. Mark, I hear you. I feel you. That's what I wanted to say about that. Trees for Life is still up and running, still doing amazing things. On a
Well,
personal note, I have this vision board, and one of the things is I want to be able to grow my business to a position where I can have a scholarship. So I was the recipient of a Landscape Ontario scholarship that helped me finish school because I couldn't afford it.
great.
And without LO, without that scholarship,
Yeah.
bursary,
Yeah.
without that bursary, I wouldn't have been able to finish. Ron Cowdice actually presented me with that bursary on stage at Congress one year. I was wearing bright yellow pants. I think there's condemning images out there on the internet somewhere, but I would love to do that. I'd love to have
Yeah.
my landscape artist scholarship or bursary. And
Yeah.
the other thing is I want to sign like a big ass check to Trees for Life, Like that would just be that would be to me so rewarding to just be like, so how many trees do you need? 200,000? No
Yeah.
problem. Done.
Yeah.
Like
Well, thank you.
I would one day. So great shout out to Tony. I'm not sure if he's listening or not. He has been on the show previously. An incredible man. I'm so grateful to have got to know him a little bit before he retired. And we're still in contact. So very incredible man who's inspired so many. Again, he's
He
humble.
has it. I know he'll never admit it, but
No.
the end of my story is that we become brothers, and
Oh, I love.
I call him Brother Tony. He calls me Brother Mark. And there was one occasion where several years ago he helped me over yet another hurdle, and I sent him an email. I said, "You're like a brother." And then I said, I corrected myself. You're actually more like a brother than my brothers are like
Yeah.
brothers. And I have two brothers, and I love them very much. But
Yep.
it's Brother Tony. And by the way, that situation with the MTO, I was very close to burning a bridge there. I was so angry, and he's not as emotional as I am, and he's just cool. I walked out of the meeting,
Yeah.
and he stayed, and he cooled everybody down, and he smoothed it out. And in the end, we got the cooperation we needed. Credit to MTO. In the end, they came through.
Yep.
And I was always sorry that I felt the need to say what I did that particular day, but Tony saved the day.
And there's part of me that thinks if you didn't do that and it didn't get escalated, maybe they didn't realize how serious you guys were. And I wasn't in the room,
They might not have,
right? And I don't know.
I don't know.
But sometimes I can't say I'm a religious or a spiritual person, but I do believe that certain things have to happen in order for the domino effect,
Right.
because I've experienced that in my life.
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes it's a mentor. Sometimes it's a really shitty situation that catapults you into the next version of yourself or the next opportunity. So sometimes something has to happen to be the catalyst for the next step.
Right.
And I like to think that what you did, having not been in the room, was a catalyst.
Well, I'm very impressed at your ability to regurgitate the story as accurately as you have, because everything you said, it's actually true.
There you go. It's a beautiful story. So I really appreciate you sharing, because
Thank
I think there's a lot of work that goes on behind closed doors that people don't realize, the passion, right? That goes on to make these things happen.
It's
Oh.
true. And when you wade into a volunteer position, wherever it is, my experience has been, I never imagine it to be quite the commitment it really is. And it's only when I'm in it, I go,
Yeah.
wow, this is This is a big deal. Like, I committed to a lot more than I thought I had committed
Yeah.
to, and I think that happens quite frequently in the world of volunteerism, but I have no
Yeah.
regrets. None. I have no regrets about it. And by the way, a guy named Jeff Olson has just taken over the chairmanship of Trees for Life as of yesterday, actually. So Jeff is the chair and recently CEO of BTN Nurseries
Okay. Yeah.
in Schaumburg, a big Canadian enterprise. And Jeff is a really good friend, and he's very, very capable. I think Trees for Life is in excellent hands right now.
Excellent. Well, I'm just going to have to reach out to him and see if I can't have a
Get
little
him on your
conversation with him too.
show. Oh,
I'll try
he'd
not
be
to cry
phenomenal.
that time. Sorry. I wish we could just stick, like, we need little eye socket, what is it, tear duct corks, that we can stick in our ear ducts and our noses when we don't want to cry. It's like, I'm not crying. It's allergies. I say that all the time because I cry all the time. Why do I have to feel everything? Anyway, I blame you, honestly, Mark. I blame you. You didn't have
Yeah,
to move me like
you
that.
you can blame me. Um,
Perfect. I will.
I have a sister who she's a doctor and she's got a wonderful bedside manner, but she says my tear ducts are hardwired to my heart.
Ooh.
And she said, you get that from our mother. And
Ah.
I don't think she means that kindly, quite frankly. But that's a sister talking to her older brother. And she doesn't have that problem. She can deal with stuff and she doesn't get the same emotional response that I do.
Right. I'd say I've often said that when I need like a really big cry, I put it in my schedule. It's like I don't have time right now for a mental breakdown. I'm going to do that on Thursday between 2 and 3 between appointments. That's when I'm
Really?
going to have my mental breakdown.
Good for
That's
you. That
doesn't always work
clever.
that way, but we can try.
You're a great time manager,
Energy manager.
energy manager.
Yeah, so
Okay.
you can manage your time, but your energy is different between those times. So that's a whole other episode that we could do another time. But
How does
so I do want to bring it back because we only have about 10 minutes ish left. And
okay.
I don't want to hold you more than I need to, even though I feel like we definitely already need a part two because we haven't even scraped the surface with you, Mark. But on your questionnaire, I always ask people, for in life or if they're going to start a business, any advice that you'd give. So I'd like to say what you said verbatim, and then I'd like you to comment on it. So I always ask, what advice would you give someone either in life or looking to start their own business? And this is what you said. You said, have a plan, be bold, take measured risks, ask questions, listen, and seek out wise, experienced people who want to help you.
I'd forgotten what I wrote, but I like that.
Yeah, I
I
like it
think
too. Yeah, it's good.
somebody a lot wiser than me must have written that. I
I'm
have to
telling you.
say, I have to say that my father, God bless him, who helped shape my career at a very early age, was not an especially good delegator. And I took over a business that was employing about 250 people, full time and permanent. And we had
Oh
5
my
stores.
God.
We had a farm. We had a wholesale division at 22. I was 22 when he gave me the keys to his office. And at that time, he had a secretary. People don't even talk about that anymore. Nobody has a
Right.
secretary. He had a secretary. He had a private office. He had and he said, I'm tired of it. You run it. Um, I was in survival mode. First of all, I was very flattered that he thought I could do it, but I didn't realize at the time he really just wanted to move on and open another business, and that's what he did. And I'm not being critical of my father, but it was sort of like taking a young child and throwing them in the lake and saying like,
Yeah. How
"Learn
to
how to
swim.
swim.
Yeah.
Learn how to swim. You'll figure it out." And so I don't know if they do or not. I never did that with any of my children. But what I learned was that there are resources out there that are so helpful in the form of more experienced people. And I read a book about family business and succession in which I learned about advisory boards, and I set up an
Mm.
advisory board. And these are all people from the world of Canadian retail and an entrepreneur that I met, and I wish I could tell you more about Kingsley Ward, who wrote a book titled "Letters of a Businessman to His Son." A
Mm.
Canadian wrote this book around, I'm going to say 1980, and it became the best-selling nonfiction hardcover book in Japan of all time. And no Canadian knows this, but it was a Canadian that wrote it. And he was on my board, and I had a retired executive from Holt Renfrew and Eaton's on my board, and Hudson's Bay. I mean, at that time, these were successful people from successful enterprises. And what I learned, Heather, was that there is this wealth of knowledge out there, this huge pool of knowledge that is steeped in experience that can be helpful if you just learn how to tap it, and if you learn to ask questions and stop talking. Stop talking and listen. And they are the reason that I was able to move the company into a new phase of success. It's not because the 22-year-old knew anything about how to run a business, but it was this resource of more experienced adult people. And they weren't all men. There was a woman on my board, Shirley Daw, who was incredibly helpful. And I mention this because they devoted themselves to me and my work and our business almost for free. I forced them to take a few $100, but
Yeah.
they really didn't want the money. They
Mm.
wanted to help. And that's the lesson, I think, in my answer to your very good question is the lesson is there are people that want to help. And that's what this
Yeah.
mentorship program at Landscape Ontario you talked about before you press the record button. That is very much like what I did on my own based on what I'd read in the book.
It's such a powerful thing. What you said, like surround yourself with people who know more than you do,
Yes.
right? And there's
Yeah.
this phrase, there's
Yeah.
this quote of if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
I love
And I
it.
think about that
Yeah.
often.
Yeah.
And for me, like I do get quite passionate, right? We talk about this burning bonfire. I get
Mm.
very passionate specifically about the peer-to-peer program with Landscape Ontario because it is open to all members, whether you are a brand new member or whether you are a student member. If you are a member of Landscape Ontario, you have access to this incredible network that has changed my life
Mm.
and quite possibly saved my life in 2020,
Wow.
if I'm being super honest. Like
Wow.
I showed up in this room by accident. I was working for an employer who didn't have the time or didn't see the importance of going, but sent me in his place to
Mm.
take notes.
Mm.
And that was 2016. And I have been attending every year since because I'm in the room. I'm one of the youngest, maybe not the newest member anymore, because I know lots of people have followed me, but you're in this
Yeah.
room with people, with business owners who are willing to talk about the challenges that they've had, the hurdles that they've had to overcome,
Mm.
and the lessons they've learned along the way. And
Mhm.
you can't pay for that knowledge. Like you can't, it's extraordinary to be in that room with people that are so open. And I do strongly believe that more people around the table are better than one. And
Yes.
I am
Absolutely.
so
And you
grateful.
and you know what we learn from more than anything, Heather, is our failures. There is one of my favorite quotes is Samuel Beckett, who is an Irishman. So I feel a little close to him because Cullen's Irish, but he
He's
goes
also a
along with him.
playwright, is he not?
Playwright. He said, "Ever tried, ever failed, no matter. Try again, fail better." The last line, fail better. Why are we so afraid of failure?
No, they're all learning opportunities. You
Yeah.
can't progress, you can't move forward until you fail and learn and then
Yeah.
progress.
It's
What's
how
the
we
other
learn to
one?
walk.
Right? You fall
Yeah.
down, you learn to try better next time. Or the fail forward, right?
Mm.
Fail, but
Mm.
if you're going to fall on your face, like fall forward. Keep the momentum. Don't fall
Right.
back. Keep falling forward, and that's still progress. That's still going forward.
That's a good way of looking at it.
So we are running out of time, but there was a couple more things that I just wanted to mention before we end up here. Squelch.
Welch, what is
Eh?
it we're doing?
Putting out the fire. We don't want to do that. We
Oh,
don't want to
okay.
dampen the fire. It reminds me of a quote, and I had to look it up because I always say it wrong. But one of my favorite quotes, and I have to say it because it's so pertinent to what we've been talking about. It's make no little plans. They have no magic to stir men's blood and probably will not themselves be realized.
Mm.
And that's Daniel Burnham. Daniel Architect, Scape Architect, Daniel Burnham, or city planner. He's one of those. He's related to the industry, but
Mm.
I came across this quote in school: "Make no small plans," and that makes me think of the bonfire. It's like if you're gonna make a bonfire, don't make like this piddly little like an 8 by 8 inch thing. No, make a bonfire. Commit.
Right.
A big
Do it
fire.
right.
Do it right. And lastly, before I let you go, I love something else that you put on your, there's so many things. We need to do a part 2 because there's so many things we haven't touched on. But I loved that a quote that you wrote, and you said that you're not retired, you are refocused. So what are you doing now? What fills your days? Are you out fishing?
I'm not fishing.
No?
No, I'm not fishing. I did take up golf about 10 years ago, maybe 12 years ago, and I do enjoy playing golf. But golf is really just a break from my volunteer commitments.
Yeah.
And I'm still, even though Jeff Holson is moving into the chair position at Trees for Life, I'm still on the board. I remain very committed to our long-term vision and our strategy. I'm on the board of the Rideau Hall Foundation in Ottawa. David Johnston invited me to join that board, and what a steep learning curve that is,
Yeah.
Heather. It's an extraordinary experience. I'm on the board also of a private family foundation. A good friend of mine, Bob Barrett, started a foundation about 10 years ago, and he asked me to join the board when he was putting it together. So for 8 years, I was the only non-family member on his board, and
Wow.
he's been extraordinarily generous, and he's showing me the way in the world of philanthropy. I think Bob has given away about $160 million, and he's not finished. He's got a
Yeah.
lot of work to do. And when I say I'm refocused, what I mean is I don't work for profit anymore. I'm very fortunate that I don't need to, but I am still working. If we define work as that thing that gets you up in the morning and out the door, I'm still working, but I'm refocused on doing what I can to leave the world in a better place than when I arrived here in 1956.
Hmm.
That would be my goal now. And it's very different from the goals I had when I was in business. Very different indeed. So I'm refocused.
I love that goal of, and I think as many of us in the landscape industry and profession, we like to try and leave the planet, the space, one property better than it was when we
Mm,
arrived. And it's,
yes.
I find you very inspiring, retired but refocused, that you still have fire in you. And I will say that, Mark, this bonfire, you know what? And I don't know how to say this politically correctly, okay? But sometimes you come across people in life who have either given up or feel like they've already done their dues and they're
Mm,
just going to coast the rest of the way,
yeah, yeah.
And I feel like there's still so much work to do, that
Mm,
if you have something that has lit that fire in you, you
mhm.
can't just put it out. The fire is still burning, and I can see your fire, Mark. You're a light for many of us. So
Well,
I
thank you.
wanted to thank you again for the opportunity to interview you. I feel very fortunate, and I'm so glad that you were able to share some of your story, your expertise, and your personal insight with myself and whoever's listening or watching. So,
The pleasure's been mine.
okay. Cheers, Mark. We'll have to bring you back for a part 2, and cheers to you. Yes.
And to
And I'm sure that I will see you around.
I think you've got a very bright future ahead of you.
Thanks, Mark. I
You do.
will see you next time. Cheers. That brings us to the end of this week's episode of Hops and Hedges, hosted by me, Heather Gerard of My Landscape Artist. Now, before you go, here's a quick word from our sponsor, ext.tech. In today's fast-paced world, landscaping businesses need modern tools to keep up with constant change, and that's where EXT comes in. EXT is transforming how landscaping, snow removal, and construction companies manage their operations. Using streamlined client management, real-time financial insights, and a modern mobile app your team will actually enjoy using. And with flat-rate pricing, there are no surprises, just clarity and control. If you're ready to revolutionize and grow your landscaping business, visit ext.tech to learn more. For additional savings, use the code HOPS10 at checkout, or just tell them that Heather sent you.